Cool. So I think we can get started. Looks like there are still people trickling in, but in the interest of time, I'm going to get started. So this will be a recorded session, so you can watch it later on as well. First of all, thank you so much for coming. I'm really pleased to see everyone. And just to get things started, I want to post a few social media accounts that we have. So you can use this opportunity to also learn more about us. Three over there on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. And really happy to be here today. We have also on this call Christine Rahal, who is from Grad Admissions. She's the expert here on all the operations regarding admissions, and she and I will be happy to take any questions in the chat that are admissions related, problems with CollegeNet and so on. But I think the most important is today we have very fortunate to have three program directors, Professor Susan Davidson, Dr. Arvind Varshnama, and Professor Swapnil Youssef. And they're going to be telling everybody about the CIS, CIT, and data science master's programs. And these are all November 1st early deadline. So I'm sure many of you are thinking about that, and that's why you're here. I just like to start off by saying that this is such an amazing time to join Penn Engineering. The pandemic's now behind us. We have new buildings coming up at the Amy Gutman Hall for Data Science and also the Vagelos Energy Science Building. Last year, we also launched the Venture Lab, which is in collaboration with Wharton, where many of our students now can conceptualize and commercialize companies. And a very timely arrival for you is together with the new Amy Gutman Hall in data science. We're also launching several new interesting initiatives, such as the Engineering Fellowship Program, where at the end of the first year, selected master students can work in high-performing startups, working closely with CEOs and CTOs. And if you go on our website, you can find all kinds of new research centers that are coming up in precision agriculture, engineering for health, IoT, data science. So I think you will find that your experience here will be very, very enriching. Many of you, I know, come here, particularly if you're overseas, with the intention of finding a job, having professional development. Very pleased to know that now we have significantly beefed up our career services support. Just this week, we had our semiconductor week, where we invited companies like Intel to talk about jobs. That's going to be followed by Data Week a few weeks from now. And just in September, we had a very successful career fair with many companies coming, some in person and some virtual. And for any of you that's thinking about PhD program, I'm also increasingly seeing more and more of our students go on successfully to PhD programs. Just came back from California at UC Irvine last week. I met a Penn Masters alum who later went on to complete her PhD, and she's now a faculty member at UC Irvine. And also very good news is I think this year we did not have many. In fact, we have very few, close to zero visa-related big issues. Like there were some minor hiccups, but generally, I think visa processing for international F1 students have gone on very smoothly this year. I hope, touch wood, the coming year will be the same as well. And yeah, so great time for our school. Our new faculty in machine learning, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity. And so very much looking forward to your applications. So with that said, I'm going to hand off first to, I think, Dr. Arvind and Professor Swap to talk about CIS and CIT. So I'm going to hand it off to you, Arvind and Swap.
Thanks, Boone. I think Arvind's actually running late from class, so I'll get started and I think he'll just join us at some point. And if he's running super late, I can just speak on his behalf. So let me just share my screen. Cool. So let's get started. So welcome, everyone. My name is Swapnil Sheth. I'm the director of the CIS MSc program, and I'll provide like there are a few slides here, and we can talk about like various things related to CIS, MSc, and Arvind, I think, should join us soon, and he'll talk about MCIT. But of course, we are here to help answer any questions you might have. So feel free to ask questions. I think we have some time at the end, but feel free to put them in chat as well. So let's get started. So CIS, so within the computer science department, we have a few different master's programs. So you'll hear from like me and Arvind, and then from Professor Davidson, who'll talk about data science. So the CIS MSc program, in my mind, is sort of what I would say the traditional master's in CS program. And then we have sort of the specialized ones like data science and MCIT. So for CIS MSc, we are assuming that your background is something related to computer science in your undergrad. So if you've done computer science or computer engineering, for example, you'll be a good fit. We'll assume that you've taken classes such as operating systems, data structures, discrete math, linear algebra, and so on. So within computer science, you have a lot of choices, of course, in terms of what classes you take. So the CIS MSc program is oriented towards that. So there are 4 core classes and there are 6 electives. So I'll get to like all of these details in a second, but the idea is that we want all of you to have a breadth in terms of what your background is. So that's what the core is for. And then you can choose to get either more breadth by taking the electives or depth in a certain area. And as Boone mentioned, we have a lot of like new faculty in machine learning, in NLP, in cybersecurity, in quantum computing. So you can choose to sort of work in any of those areas. So let me jump into the core and then the elective. So for core, you need to take 4 classes. We have a few buckets. So you need to take at least one theory class, which will be either analysis of algorithms or theory of computation. You need to take at least one systems class, and you have a set of 4 choices there. So software systems, internet and web systems, network systems, and operating systems. You can take at most one machine learning class to count towards core, but you can take more as electives. So we have a few different machine learning options. And then we have other core classes such as software foundations and computer architecture. So you'll end up taking 4 of these classes depending on your interest. And then you can take 6 electives. So amongst the 6 electives, you have a few choices. So you need to take at least 3 CIS electives. So these can be any graduate course within the CIS department. So these are 5,000, 6,000, or 7,000 level courses. And what you can also do is you're allowed to take up to 3 non-CIS courses. So of course, like I'm very partial and I feel like the CIS department and engineering in general is fantastic. We have a lot of really good faculty. But at the same time, Penn is a good university overall. Like there are a lot of other departments that are very, very strong. So we've had students who've taken classes in the Wharton School, for example, if they're interested in business. We've had people take classes in other engineering departments like electrical engineering or mechanical engineering. We've had people take classes in the College of Arts and Sciences where they take like math classes, for example. So there are a lot of like choices you have over here. In addition to classes, you can also do a master's thesis if you're interested. It's not required. And you can also do something called independent study. So the idea here is that sometimes, like if you have a lot of depth in an area, you may not find classes that can like help you go even deeper. But what you can do is work with like any faculty member and do research or some project related to your interest and the faculty member's interest. And you can do up to 2 credits of those classes. So the idea with like all of these courses is that you get a lot of choice, you get some breadth by taking the core classes, and then you get a lot of depth by taking these like advanced classes or thesis or independent study. So that's pretty much it for MSE. Let me actually, I hear Arvind outside. Let me just see if he can join Zoom really quickly so he can talk about MCIT. Give me 1 second. Hey, Arvind, MCIT part. Do you want to just jump on? Yeah, right now? Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought I'd be back. Yeah. Do you want to join Zoom there or do you want to? No, I can do it. Okay, sounds good. Then I have to be in the meeting. Okay, so Arvind is joining Zoom literally like right now. So let's just wait like 20 seconds. He should be here.
So while we wait, Swap, there's a question that came in about maybe I thought that's an interesting one that you can take.
Oh yeah, thanks. I'll take a look at the chat right now. I'm an international student, have 2 credits completed outside of my bachelor's. However, the first one provides professional credit, second one academic. Yes, I think in general, like the way I would recommend mentioning that is to mention it somewhere in the application. Like the exact place doesn't really matter. Like we are going to look at your entire application. We have a few slides later on in terms of what all are the things that you'll submit. So resume is obviously one place. The other place is a personal statement. So the personal statement is deliberately like open-ended, right? So you could write anything that you feel is relevant, that you feel like the committee should know like about you. So definitely feel free to mention that. Like the exact place doesn't really matter. And I'll take the second question. So is there a video interview for prospective students? Sometimes, but typically not. Like if we need more information, we'll reach out to you. But generally, like your application is generally all we need to sort of get information about you. So typically no, but in certain cases we might.
Yeah, I also put in the chat the URL for the YouTube channel. At some point, we will post this there as well. A lot of good stuff there for you to check out too. So Swap, is Arvind here?
I think he should
Yes,
be
I
joining
just
Zoom
joined.
any
Sorry,
minute.
I just
Oh,
finished.
yeah.
Awesome. All right, man.
Go for it, Arvind.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, actually, if you don't mind advancing the
Yep.
slides, yeah. Okay, thanks, Swap. Yeah. So the MCIT program is another one of our master's programs in the CS department, except it's, well, a special program, and special in the sense that it's for students who do not have CS backgrounds. I think that is the main part. And the goal of the program is to get folks who don't have the CS background into the CS field by teaching you first 6 core courses. So in the fall, we have intro to programming, discrete structures, intro to computer architecture, computer systems. And then in the spring, kind of a follow-up course for the programming is the data structures one. For the discrete math, the follow-up is algorithms, and then systems part 2, basically. The cool thing is that after that first year, you start taking graduate level courses with, well, the like regular CS grad students. So in the second year, you'll take electives with the same set of students who are doing the CIS MSc program. So it's 6 core courses and 4 elective courses, 10 CUs in total. You're also allowed to do 1 non-CS course among those 10 courses, because the idea is that if someone wants to mix, let's say, economics that they had in their undergrad with now this CS degree, then we should be accommodating of those types of mixes. So yeah, that is the overall like MCIT program. Next slide. Okay. I mean, I can talk about this, Swap, and then jump back. Yeah. So actually, the thing is that Swap and I are doing this combined because a lot of things apply to both of our programs. So, for instance, this slide on full and part-time study. So we have in both our programs we have a mix of part-time students and full-time students. If you're a part-time student, that's really only allowed if you're a domestic student or you're a citizen, basically. International students must be full-time status students, which means that you need to be registered for 3 courses. Each course in our master's programs is 1 credit unit, so 3 courses. You'll often hear people refer to them as 3 CUs, right? Typically, these programs get completed over the course of 4 semesters. Well, for full-time students, part-timers might take a little bit longer. The most common layout of courses is what we've described over here. So in the fall, you take fall and spring of the first year, you take 3 CUs each. Summer, you do an internship, and we have a slide about, CPT. Some of the international students might be interested in that aspect of it. We'll talk about that. And then in the fall, you do 3 CUs. Fall of second year, you do 3 CUs. And then the last semester, you do like 1 CU. There are some caveats to that, which we can get into about the fall semester of the second year. But this is the most common thing, like 3-3-3-1, as we refer to it.
And Arvind, let me also add here. So I think I'll mention the domestic side as well. So if you're a domestic student, like there is no requirement to be full-time unless you have some external constraint where you need to be full-time, maybe like if you have some fellowship or something like that. So a lot of domestic students sometimes take 2.5, sometimes 3 years to do this. So they'll take 2 classes every semester instead of 3. So you have that flexibility and you can choose what makes sense for you. And of course, we are here to help advise and help you figure out those plans. Arvind, actually, before we get on, there's actually an interesting question in chat. Let me just read it out to you. So someone asked, they are an English major student, liberal arts undergrad degree, and wondering if MCIT is friendly to liberal arts students.
Oh, that's a great question. Actually, I mean, coming from a liberal arts background, we have had many students coming from Bryn Mawr, Swarthmore, etc., who have joined the MCIT program. So is it friendly? Well, we've successfully graduated many students with background similar to the background that the person who asked the question seems to be having. So yeah, I would say let me state it in a different way, right? So like when the teachers are teaching these, especially the first semester classes, they are assuming absolutely nothing. So for instance, I used to teach the discrete math class, and the very first lecture would be how to define, I mean, what is the definition of a set? I'm not even assuming that, for instance. And then we proceed from there. Right? So similarly with programming, the very first lecture will involve, okay, like how do you even install, let's say, some Java editor or something like that, or even like what is programming, all that type of stuff. So it's modeled on the intro courses that we have for our undergrad curriculum.
Sounds good. So Arvind, you want to take this slide?
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so admission requirements. So these requirements are generally pretty common across most of these programs. So most programs will ask you for a personal statement. So our advice for the personal statement is to tell us like what you're interested in doing. So if you are admitted to the program, like what would you do? What are your goals? What you hope to get out of it? And then maybe what you want to do like after you've completed the program. Like is it like continuing on to a PhD? Is it working in industry? Is it joining a research lab? So that way we get to know a little bit more about you. The personal statement is also a good place to put information that doesn't really nicely fit in like anywhere else in the application. So the person who had asked the question earlier, like feel free to include like things like this in your personal statement if you have some circumstances or special things that you want the community to know about you. So in addition to that, you'll need letters of recommendation. So typically we want like letters of recommendation that can highlight what your like professional and scholarly abilities are. So if it's someone you've taken a class with or someone that you've worked with, those are generally good people to ask for letters of recommendation. GRE scores are optional, but if you have taken the GRE and have scores to report, you're welcome to do so. Definitely include an up-to-date resume and include like any coursework training experience that you might have that may not necessarily be on your transcript, include it in your resume and or the personal statement. Student composition. So our programs are, I would say, like medium size. So they're not like very small or very large. So for CIS, we typically get a decent number of internal students. So these are undergrads who are pursuing an accelerated master's. We have some dual degree students. And generally from sort of the external world as such, we get about like 100 people that we end up like admitting to our program. Arvind, do you want to talk about MCIT quickly?
Sorry, I realized I was on mute. So for MCIT, it's, I mean, a little bit smaller than the CIS program. I mean, in fact, I would say that each new batch of students is around the 70-75 mark. We also include, I mean, we also have students who start out with a different degree program within the School of Engineering and then who do a dual degree with us. It's not noted over here, but we also have a dual degree program with Wharton. So people who are doing MBA can also do MCIT along the way. So yeah, so in total right now, we have about 196 students across the 2 years.
Sounds good. And then a couple of questions in chat about like fit for like CIS or CIT. So let me maybe try to answer that here. So in my mind, like if you know something like, let's say, data structures and you've taken, let's say, 2 to 3 computer science classes, you are probably overqualified for MCIT is what I would feel. And like Arvind can sort of chime in more on this. So you don't need a background in computer science to necessarily apply to CIS. Like if you've done electrical engineering where you're reasonably comfortable with like hardware and maybe some programming, you'll be a perfectly good fit for CIS, maybe with a slight more like hardware focus. Like that's totally fine. And I think someone actually, Arvind, do you want to add something?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say one way of looking at it is we have those 6 core classes. If you feel like you've taken classes in, let's say, 3 or more of them, then you're most likely to be overqualified and probably, safer to apply to the CIS master's program, assuming that you've taken like 3, 4 classes, and especially if you've done, and Swap, feel free to chime in. I think that one of the things that you folks look out for is like a large like CS like coding project. That seems to be something that's a little bit hard to quantify just given coursework, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just like some experience, like if you were to take like a graduate classes, do we as a committee feel that you'll be able to do well and succeed and thrive in them? That's really what we are looking for from the CIS perspective. And let's keep going on the slides and then we can like answer more questions. So we have a lot of ways for students to talk to each other, both like on campus and online. So in person, we have like sort of social events, for example. So there's one coming up on Monday, actually, that we'll be holding for master students. We have a lot of like advising officers. There are various like mentoring programs that various student groups run. And there are a lot of like student groups, both related to CS and sort of broader. So there are some like CS students interested in entrepreneurship, for example. So there are student groups that you can get involved in. Different groups use different things. So for CIS MSc, we use Slack, and that's a good way to like get in touch with like alums. But we also have Facebook and LinkedIn, and Boone shared some of the links for Penn Engineering earlier on in chat as well. Student resources. So we have a lot of like different kinds of resources. So obviously from the academic side, we provide resources, but there are a lot of like not directly academic related resources as well. So I have a somewhat of a long list here, but this is again like a very small subset of the resources that Penn and Penn Engineering has. So for international students, we have like a wonderful like international students office that helps with a lot of like immigration related things. We have career services, which is broadly of interest to a lot of people. We have things like student health services and counseling and psychological services. We have student groups like GAPSA and sort of more specific groups like Advancing Women in Engineering, Rangoli, Chinese Students Association, etc. So there are a lot of different ways that you can get involved, you can get help, and you can help other people. Internships. So I think a lot of people are generally interested in internships. So let's talk a little bit about like what in some ways the rules are and then like what other people have done. So to be eligible to do an internship via CPT, and the CPT part is mostly for international students, you need to have finished like 6 course units. So this is pretty typical because you'll take 3 classes in fall, 3 classes in spring, and you'll be eligible to do an internship. Of course, if you're a domestic student, these rules don't apply and you can like do an internship pretty much without this. We also have an option to do something called an academic field study. So if you have an internship, for example, that you do in the summer and you want to continue working at that company for fall, there is something called academic field study. I'm happy to answer questions if people have them, but we have a website, so feel free to look at that for more information. And historically, a lot of our students, both CIS and MCIT and data science for that matter, have done internships at both like sort of large companies and smaller companies throughout like the US. So here are some examples like on the slides. A lot of people, at least in CIS, tend to prefer software engineering internships, but it doesn't have to be that. Like we've had people who've done PM kind of roles, so either product or project like manager roles. We've had people do sort of internships at the more finance oriented companies or even the sort of hedge funds in the New York area, things like Citadel and Jane Street and so on. But all the bigger ones like Amazon, Google, Meta, Oracle, there are a lot of people who've done internships in these areas sort of over the years. And we mentioned this earlier, but career services provides a bunch of like wonderful resources. We have like career fairs throughout the year. We have sessions on how to like improve your resume and how to like do mock interviews and things like that. There's a lot of like advice and help available with career services. And sort of just continuing on the line of graduation. So a lot of people sort of choose, at least for CIS, like what they want to do, partly based on what they end up doing during the masters. So many of them get into research and they are like really interested in doing research. So they end up like pursuing a PhD program either at Penn or at other universities. Recently, we've had people graduate from Penn and go on to do PhD at like Stanford, at Brown, and like other top universities. Many people, of course, end up doing doing internships and liking the industry more. So they end up like working full time at like companies. You can see some of the top hiring employers that we have. It's all the usual suspects like Amazon, Apple, Twitter, Google, Oracle, and so on. But obviously, because of the proximity to the New York area, we get a lot of hedge funds and financial companies like Citadel, JP Morgan, and so on. And we also get a lot of places from like the West Coast and startups that people end up working at. Arvind, do you want to talk about some of the
Just chiming in, yeah.
MCIT folks?
Yep. Thanks. Yeah. So for MCIT, I mean, I think among other impressive things, to me, there are two big impressive parts about MCIT. One is in the second year, students are able to hold their own, and even more, I would say, with the CS master students. The first year really prepares people well for those electives, but also because it can't be denied that master students are looking for jobs when they graduate. The MCIT students get similar jobs to the CIS master students. I think the difference will be that most of them will do software engineering jobs. So as it says over here, largely software engineering. But we've had graduates go on to all the big Amazon, Meta, Google, all those companies, Microsoft, etc. Some of them have done data science jobs. I would also say that there have been some who started with the MCIT program and then transferred to data science or did a dual degree with data science if they felt the passion towards that area. I mentioned earlier the MBA plus MCIT program. All of those folks seem to gravitate more towards product management. But overall, we've had good success, very good success, I would say, in terms of graduates getting jobs.
Cool, thanks. Do you want to just take I think this is the last slide, Arvind.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are we looking for, right? Because this is the most common question, I feel, because all these requirements are there, but what things are important, what things are not important. So I guess the number one thing would be that your coursework and grades need to be strong. I will mention, just in case people are worried about the whole with MCIT, you've not taken a CS course, what are we looking for? So over there, you just need to be strong in the area that you're graduating in. So you're an English major, do your grades in that particular major reflect the fact that you can deal with a certain amount of coursework and you're doing well in that major, right? Obviously, for the CIS masters, CS courses, you should have good grades in that. If you don't have the greatest grade in, like, let's say, a physics course and you're applying for our master's program, probably not such a big deal. So we do zoom in on that transcript a little bit more than just your vanilla like GPA level. Then if you're supplying us with a GRE score, strong scores in that, we look at your resume. So in your resume, make sure that you have updated it, have all the latest and greatest accomplishments that you have. In the resume, make sure that you're highlighting things that are relevant to the program. So for instance, if you didn't do a CS degree and you're applying for the CIS masters, as we noted before, like, have you done a large project? Please highlight that. Tell us something about, like how extensive it was, how much coding was required, etc. Last but not least, we should also mention the whole personal statement. And here, I mean, it matters to both programs, CIS and CIT, but I would say from the CIT perspective, the personal statement is really, really important. We really want to know you're really good in your undergrad field. Why do you want to make the switch? What made you decide to essentially like do something completely new? How do you know, or like, how can you convince us that you're actually gonna stick it out and learn something new, etc., right? So make sure that you include all of that in your personal statement. Also, as highlighted here, we're looking for people who will contribute to the student community, people who will work on larger team projects, maybe get involved in research, maybe be part of some of these student organizations that we highlighted before. All of that can go into your personal statement and can really, make your application shine. Swap, feel free to add more.
No, I think, yeah, definitely agree with like everything that you said. And I think since we are almost at time, like maybe let's just hand it over to Sue for like the part for data science. I'll stop sharing my screen, and then we'll obviously stick around and we can take more questions and we'll respond to questions in chat as well. Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Thank you, Swap. Thank you, Arvind. Susan, it's all yours now. Lots of great questions in the chat too. Please keep coming. So I'll hand it off to you.
Yes, I'm coming off mute, so you could actually hear me too, which would be wonderful. So let me go and share my screen. Hopefully I got the right one. And now I am going to slideshow mode. Start from the beginning. So can everybody see my
I see your calendar.
You see my what?
Calendar.
In your calendar, Sue.
Oh my gosh, how do I stop share? This is the difficult part, is getting the right thing to share, right? Okay, so I'm going to share desktop too. Are you seeing my?
Yes, yes. Now it's good.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm here to talk about the master's degree in data science, and to position this with the other programs that Swap and Arvind have talked about. We expect students with some computer science background. So it's not none and it's not tons, but it's some. So what I'm going to do in my short presentation is I'm first of all going to talk about an overview of the program. I'll hit on a key point, which is the research opportunities. I think that's come up a lot in Slack. And then I'll talk about career paths and student resources. But when we consider what the program is, what do students actually study, we're starting from the idea that data science really takes ideas from computer science and statistics, and then allows students to combine it with some other field of study that they're interested in, whether it be, a lot of people go into bioinformatics or biomedicine or finance or public policy or because it's really those concepts being applied to a different field. And so based on that, this is what the curriculum is all about. So we require that everybody actually have good foundations in programming. And so if you come from a computer science background, this really means, or if you any background, you should know how to program and know what data structures and basic algorithms are. So that's sort of a starting point. But there's also the mathematics that underlies a lot of the machine learning algorithms, which really relies on calculus and linear algebra. So we're looking for those things as well. And if a student's also done a probability and statistics, that's wonderful. So the foundations, we make sure that everybody, not everybody comes in with exactly the same skill sets. We make sure everybody has the same abilities by requiring these foundation courses. If you can show that you've taken them at another institution, equivalent courses, then we would let you waive them and substitute what we call a technical or depth elective. So that's the bottom of this picture here. At the core of our program is statistics. So you have to understand statistics well. We have courses in that. You have to also understand machine learning. There's a growing variety of courses that can be used to fulfill that requirement. And then the flagship course, I guess is what you call, of our program is big data analytics. And there you really look at the complete data science pipeline, from the data preparation to the data analysis. And we teach you the tools that you need using things like Jupyter Notebooks and Python Pandas and Spark and parallel computationally environments. So that's really the flagship course of the program. So that's 5 units out of the 10. And what are these remaining 5 units? Well, you can take them in any one of a number of different buckets. the buckets could represent the area in which you want to apply the data science concept, from biomedicine to social or network science to more sort of applied research and surveys and the rest. Or it could be more computer science centric. So there's courses in data centric programming or data analysis and artificial intelligence. So there's a variety of different areas that you could choose to specialize in. But probably many of our students, and we try to encourage our students, do either a practicum, which is a 1 semester idea, or 2 semesters. And we encourage our students to do this because we found that employers are really looking for this type of experience that goes beyond coursework. So what is the thesis and practicum? Well, as I mentioned, the practicum is 1 semester and thesis is 2. They have different course numbers associated with them. The practicum tends to be more applied or engineering, whereas the master's thesis tends to be more research oriented. But this can be done in collaboration with people from across the university. And that's one of the benefits of Penn. It's a big university. We have a law school, we have a medical school, we have a business school, we have arts and sciences. And so students can find interesting projects and collaborate on them across the university. And so we have people doing, social science or genomics or healthcare, climate change, looking into issues of equity and justice, all for this practicum or master's thesis. The mechanism is that students magically find these faculty from across campus, but there's a large number of research centers that are across the university where we have connections already. And so students find that always with a faculty in computer science or engineering to be able to help with the supervision. So there's a large number of opportunities, exciting opportunities at Penn to apply what you're learning in your data science curriculum to either research or real problems that people are looking to solve. Where do our students go? I think that it overlaps to some extent with where computer science students go. But this is sort of a pie chart of the jobs most recently. You can see a lot of people are going sort of into the tech industry, from Meta, Microsoft. Of course, Palantir is a really big draw because it's a premier company for data science. Snowflake, others go into financial services like Vanguard or Morgan Stanley. So again, there's a lot of overlap between the things that you apply computer science to and where you would end up. The titles within these companies are, anywhere from data scientist or data engineer, data analyst, and so on, machine learning scientist, a quant. And so those are the titles of many of the students. And really, these career paths are all over the map in terms of where the students' interests actually are. Of course, the career outcome data that we have is a year old. The job market's a little bit different this year, but our students have all been very successful in finding well-paid jobs in industry. As mentioned before, many of our students do internships over the summers where they can gain professional experience. Sometimes this leads into job offers. This is a list of some of the internships that students have had over the past year. Resources for our students. Our students are wonderful, as was also mentioned earlier. Something that we're looking for in our applicants are people who will add to the program. And one really important way that people can add to the program is by creating community and getting people together and involved. And so we have a data science general assembly where these people organize social events or other types of events at which people can learn more about opportunities. They provide an interface to the faculty who are overseeing the program and give us feedback on what's working, what isn't, and the rest. We, of course, have Facebook, Piazza, Discord channel, Slack channel, so that our students can keep in touch with each other. And we also reach out to our alumni, because our alumni are extremely helpful in helping students find jobs and advising them on what it's like out in the real world. We also have a mentoring program where upper level students will help lower students earlier in the program figure out their way through the curriculum. As mentioned, there's many events for master's students in general, from career fairs and all of the rest, but I just wanted to touch on two that in particular are important for data science students. For the past few years, we've had a data week where it's basically a virtual employer encounter where you can get an idea of what the industry is in data science. It's typically in November's. And then in February, we have an event which features women in data science, organized jointly with Wharton program, where we look at problems in data science and what women have been doing to address them. I'm going to end with this slide that just says, you only met one of us. I am Susan Davidson, but we have many other faculty who both co-direct as well as advise students in the program. Many of these faculty come from machine learning. Like Jake Gardner, Dinesh, and Victor are in more the machine learning side of things. Sharath Guntuku, he manages our practicum and master's theses. And the most important person is Stacy Kaplan, who will answer your questions about the program over the next few months. That's all I have to say.
Cool. Thank you, Professor Susan. Now, while you were speaking, there were many fast and furious chat questions. Given that we have time, I thought I would read off some and then you can answer together with Saurabh and Arvind. So a participant, Jingrong, asked, my undergraduate major is finance and I plan to apply the data science program. For students who wish to change their major, besides meeting the prerequisite requirements, what aspects do you emphasize in applicants? I think that came at 12:38.
Who was that for? I'm sorry.
It's a chat forum. There's a question about what aspects were you looking for in applicants when evaluating?
In data science?
Yeah. Data science.
Sorry, I didn't realize it was aimed at me.
Yeah. That was a question for you.
Yeah. So what we're looking for is you have to have proficiency in programming, at least through sort of a data structures course and basic algorithms. Without that, you would not be able to take the wide variety of courses. We're looking for experience with some statistics, so statistics and programming. Really, we're looking for people who are going to be able to succeed in this program. This is not a statistics program. This is a technical program, and therefore your ability to take engineering courses is crucial. We're also looking for people that are passionate about data science. We get thousands of applicants to this program, and we probably admit about 100 each year, just over 100. So what we really need to see in that personal statement is a passion about data science. Be concise, but be passionate. Evidenced by the things that you've done, like have you done have you taken a job? Have you done a project with somebody? Just to show that you know what data science is and you have a little bit of experience. So we're looking for passion, evidence by work. We're looking for minimal background in programming and sort of probability or linear algebra, mathematical background. We're looking for a spirit that is going to add to the program. And that should come across in the personal statement.
Cool. So there's another question for you about careers in quantitative finance. Do you see data science master students graduating and pursuing careers in that direction?
Yeah, I mean, I think that many of the students who come to do data science at Penn are drawn by the Wharton School, which is wonderful, and students can take courses in the Wharton School. Many of our students do go off into more finance-oriented or quant finance positions, yes.
So there's a question about career services. I thought I'll take this one. So I think we have a very strong career services at the university, and also within the engineering school, we have our career services team as well. And so we use this software called Handshake that allows companies to advertise their jobs. And then there's career fairs where many companies will come on campus, and those could not, they also do it virtually. And so our students get to meet many companies that way. And this also is for internship and full-time jobs. And from time to time, we invite alumni to come and give a talk in person or on Zoom to current students, telling us about their job experiences. And I also know that we have internship panels, sometimes returning students after first year, they did a great internship. They come back and they'll tell other students about it. And I'm sure when you're here, you will have the opportunity to participate in some of these panels. Last but not least, we launched this platform called People Growth, which now can connect current students to alumni in your area. So it's like a LinkedIn on steroids, but limited to Penn engineering students. A great platform. If you find somebody you want to talk to in a industry or company, you can use this platform to reach out to the alumni. So let's see, any other questions? So a lot of questions have been answered. So there was a question about submitting master's and PhD application at the same time. You can certainly do that. You can even submit 2 master's applications to 2 programs at the same time. Although I would say for that, it's better off to focus on one, and then you get admitted and you can continue to do a dual degree program, right? So a typical master's is 10 classes, and you can double count 4 and do like 16 classes for 2 degrees. A common combination we have seen is like CIT/CIS, where students come in as CIT students and then they stay on the dual program.
Yeah, agreed. Just to add on to that, there are many CIT students who feel that with just 4 electives, maybe they haven't actually managed to explore computer science that much. So the best way to learn more is to do the CIS. So it's fairly common.
Cool. So I've seen this question come out a bit, and this is, I guess, for Sue and Arvin, right? So if somebody has like some work experience, maybe their undergrad degree is in like math or econ or civil engineering, and they had a few years of coding experience, either coding or maybe some software related IT, like is data science or CIT a better fit for them?
So to be admitted to the data science program, we really do need to see evidence of coursework. I know that, some people have programmed for years, and that's wonderful. But the problem is that there's programming, and whether you would be able to take the the computer science courses in our curriculum is a question. So yes, that would be valuable. Better is that you have a grade in the course.
I think from the CIT perspective, I mean, obviously we're not looking for CS coursework. In fact, in some ways, the less CS coursework, the better. But it's more from the overqualification standpoint. I have seen, for example, people who have been in the industry for a while, and maybe they didn't do a CS degree, they went to the industry as, let's say, a product manager, and then they kind of made their way by little bits of code here and there, and eventually someone said, oh, you're a good programmer, start programming now, and they learn it on the fly. Those folks have entered the CIT program, What I will say is that we allow you to waive 2 of the classes in CIT. That is the maximum that you can waive among the core classes. So one way of looking at it would be to take a look at, like, there's intro to programming, there's intro to computer architecture, intro to data structures, blah, 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 blah. So if you feel like you can waive a bunch of them because you've already done this stuff, like in your own mind, then it's likely that you'll be overqualified. What we don't want you to do is sort of pay a lot of money and then just get bored in the class. So it's not so much that we don't want you. You should not want to, sit in a class and be bored and pay, the fees, right? So that's the way I kind of explain it to students. Now, we have had students who they will waive the intro to programming class, but everything else to them is kind of new because they've only learned programming in that slightly hacky way of, like, someone gave them pieces of code and they kind of pieced things together, but they never really understood, for instance, what is going on behind the scenes, and they're like genuinely enthusiastic about that. So it's if that fits you, then you're more than welcome to join.
So I guess this is the next question is about all three of you. So there is a question about the data science practicum, and then how that's compared with master's thesis versus independent study, right? So there's these 3 categories. Could maybe you guys speak to that? What's the difference and what that entails?
Sure. So the practicum, is 1 semester. The master's thesis is 2. The practicum is practical, mainly engineering oriented, using data science techniques to help solve a particular problem. Whereas the master's thesis may actually be coming up with a new technique or approach to solving something. And as compared to an independent study, which you can always do, this is really specifically asking students to apply what they've learned to a particular problem. Whereas an independent study could be anything. You could be learning about some new technology that could be relevant to data science, but that probably wouldn't fit in the context of a practicum.
So in your statements, letters of recommendation, in evaluating, do you care whether it's industry versus faculty letters, or does it, like, what's the right balance that students should be looking at when they apply?
We need to, at least from data science, I think we would probably lean more towards the academic letters. Although having 1 from industry would be great, but not both.
Yeah, I think for CIS, I would say, unless your like education was a long time ago, I would say have at least 1 academic letter. Having, I think, 1 industry letter is totally fine. I think it's more a question of, like, if you've been working in industry for, let's say, like 5 years or 6 years or 10 years, you are somewhat disconnected. So the people you might reach out to don't know that much about you recently. So I think bias towards a little bit of the recency, I would say, and also bias towards people who can actually write strong letters. So it's much more valuable to have a letter, regardless of whether it's industry or academia, that can say a lot of specific things about you that will help us decide, rather than someone who said, oh, this person took a class with me like 8 years ago. Like, that's not that valuable.
Yeah, also from the MCIT perspective, one thing I've seen is that students sometimes feel that, yes, we aren't requiring CS experience, but maybe I've taken this 1 computer science class and maybe that professor should be the professor who provides the recommendation. No such requirement. If that CS class that you took, you don't know that professor well, and you feel that that professor is only going to say, Arvind took the class with me and got an A- grade, and those 2 lines are the only things they will say, that is really not worth it. We are looking for, someone who can describe more about you and provide more evidence-based recommendations. So if it for CIT, just, whoever you reach out to does not necessarily need to be in the CS field. I think that's my main point.
So there is a question about dual degree, and I could generalize it a bit. So the first one is more like, if I'm in CIT, I want to do a dual degree in CIS. What's the process like? What's the criteria? And I'm curious, like, do you all see other combinations of dual degrees that students have done with your programs?
Sure, I can take that from at least the CIS side. So I think for CIS, I should maybe clarify two things, right? So dual degrees, there is a slight application process. So it's not automatic, meaning like if you meet some requirement, you automatically get admitted. There is a committee that will review it, but the process is a little bit like less onerous, I guess I would say. So the idea is that let's say you're in CIT or data science or some other master's program, there are certain requirements to be eligible to apply for the dual degree with CIS. And that same sort of thing applies for like other programs. So if you meet those eligibility criteria, you can submit your application. There's a committee that would review it and then would say yes or no.
Cool. Any other combinations you have seen, like CIT, data science, or like the most, I guess CIT/CIS is the most common one.
CIT, CIS, I would say CIT data science is also common. Especially when data science first started, there was so much excitement. People ran away from they transferred to data science. So actually, I don't know if we mentioned that the transfer option. Have we already spoken about that? I don't.
Not really. So we have some students transfer after they come, but it's not encouraged and it's not that many. And the bar, I think, is quite high for that. So
Yes.
you apply, please like apply with intention of like coming to do the program. Although we recognize sometimes people have a change in mind and so on. But we
Usually after the first year, if you're like, got really excellent grades, then we do allow that sometimes.
yeah,
Yeah.
exceptional situation. And dual degree, the tuition is like we pay tuition by the class. And if you do 2 degrees, instead of 2 times 10, 20 classes, you'll be doing 16. And then 4 of the classes can overlap. So I think we're almost out of time. So I would put this link here in the chat also for everybody. We have a new, very nice admissions website. I'm sure all of you have visited that already, but take note of the deadlines. Yeah, so Arvind, so any parting words for students? Great words of wisdom.
I'm excited about our programs and we would love to have you join us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say like
That's
looking
one.
forward to your applications. Let us know if you have questions. One thing I would advise, so if you're trying to decide between programs, obviously like see what is a good fit, but I would also say think about like what classes you want to take when you're here. And that might help you decide like which program is a better fit, because sometimes there's like overlapping like requirements, especially for CIS and data science, for example. So you can sort of choose between those programs if you like.
Yeah, and a lot of our information is publicly available. You can see all the, the different courses that we have. So just to echo what Swap said, it really helps to have a plan that, okay, when I get here, these are the things that I'd like to do. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So this Zoom is recorded. I know some of you mentioned the transcript has a lot of good stuff too. So what I'll do is we'll send the Zoom recording link, which will include the transcript through CollegeNet to all applications that have been started in these programs or applied. So hopefully that will enable all of you to see the what we have discussed today. And separately, we're going to post this on YouTube. So once again, thank you all for coming. I look forward to your application, and thank you, Swap, Sue, and Arvind for this very great webinar, and also our Christine Rahul, who has been answering many admissions questions. So thank you, Christine, for that as well.